Quote the exact language of the original flag law. Answer, resolve that the flag of the United States be 13 stripes, alternate red and white, that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field, representing a new constellation. What are you talking about? What new constellation? He's talking about an order of information. Okay? What is so important about that order of information? And the number 13. Go back to astronomy. Let's go, astrologists. July 4th, when you're counting astronomy, is in what zodiac sign? Cancer. The ancient sign for Cancer is Kepler, which means the self-created one. And if you go from the first day of Cancer to the date July the 4th, you'll get 13 days into Cancer, or 13 degrees. The number 13. Now, on July 4th, 1776, John Hancock and Charles Thompson were the ones who signed the Declaration of Independence, not Thomas Jefferson. They put their signatures on it. Now remember, John Hancock and Charles Thompson were the ones who got initiated into the Nanticoke, or Lenape. So they signed they put their signatures on the Declaration. Thus we hear the term put your John Hancock on something, your signature. So look at, this is from the book, The Secret Architecture of Our Nation's Capital. On that day, July 4th, Congress agreed the wording of the Declaration, and it was signed by the President of Congress, John Hancock, who was a Mason, and the Secretary of Congress, Charles Thompson. He goes on to say, the Mason who first signed the Declaration of Independence would have been aware of the particular significance of July 4th as a cosmic event. Now, what is going on that makes it a cosmic event? On this date, if you were to be able to step off the earth for a second and look down on the whole universe, the earth, the sun, and the Sirius constellation will all be in one line, which manifests a certain type of spiritual force, which was known amongst these people, or at least they were taught by somebody, which is why they chose that date. Which means when you make a decision, a mental decision, to affect other things, you have to know something about astronomy. Thus, on your birth charts, astrologists are looking at the planets to try to figure out different aspects of your consciousness. That's an ancient science. We don't use it no more. We just do stuff, sloppy. But the significance of this is those who have that information consciously have more brain power. I'm going to say that again. Those who have that information consciously have more brain power. You cannot outthink them. Why? Why? All right, let's deal with this. Go back to your brain for a second. And we're going to go over this again. Your brain is controlled by 3 glands that we just mentioned. All right? Let me get this up. Your brain is controlled by 3 glands. The hypothalamus, pineal hypothalamus, and pituitary. It's going to take a minute for that to come on. Now, we want to deal with warfare? Let's deal like this. Where does the power for you to think come from? Because we're going to deal with astronomy for a second and then go right into when this stuff comes up. Now, our ancients taught correct cosmology because they knew and understood real science. The power for you to transmit electrical energy in your brain does not begin in your brain. Your brain is a receiver and a transmitter. Okay? Our ancients taught that, I guess he can focus that. Our ancients taught that Sirius, the Sirius constellation, was the center of the physical universe. It's called the dog star. You find it mentioned in the Quran. Now, BenjaminBannaker, as we've recorded in his almanacs and recorded in his book, knew that the Sirius constellation had more than one star in it prior to any European. They just found out in the 1900s by going to the Dogon tribe and looking at the inscriptions that they were drawn in dirt. This is with them with telescopes and everything. They couldn't see. It's placed in the Quran in the plural form Shira, which means a plural is called a broken plural. That's the name for Sirius in the Quran. Bannaker also knew this information. Okay? And our ancients thought that that was the physical center of the universe. Okay? Now, if that's the physical center of the universe, then we understand why they're putting out Sirius satellite radio and all these things, communication. Then all of the wave energetic transformations that are taking place in the physical universe are taking place from this point. Okay? All of it. And we have to learn a little bit more about creation in order to understand this. But again, creation is not the universe is everywhere. We live in a little bubble, a little egg called a universe. And all of our energy is coming from the outside in real darkness. Okay? Real blackness. And that blackness is represented in your body by a term called melanin. That's why you're black. You are black because you are picking up wave transmissions from the center of creation. And you're picking up more than anybody else. Which means you have more power, potentially. Okay? But your conscious mind needs more information. Now again, going back to these people, they had it. And by them having it, they were able to create a so-called republic that has been in existence for 200 some odd years. Now, if you had it, what could you do? We're going to see. But getting back to the original point, if you want to outthink the people who are outthinking you, you need to know how they're outthinking you. And you need to consciously know more about the governing system of creation and how it affects your physical body before you start making your social decisions of how to govern yourselves. Now this government, the three branches, are based on that ancient system, that ancient design, that ancient paradigm. And let me pull this up real quick so we can start getting into it. Let me find it. Hold on one second, bro. Let's go here first. All right, let's start there. Now you see that seal all the time. New World Order, Novus Ordo Seclorum. Nuit Coeptis. May God favor my undertaking. And then you see this eye. What eye is that? That is called the Eye of Heru. Okay? In the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, it was represented by the letter R, which we call Re. Sun ray, etc. And Re, or the eye of Re, represented what? God. Or at least the power of God. And this seal was designed by Charles Thompson after he was initiated amongst the Nanticoke Moors in 1782. This is what he got from them. That's why it was never cut or used by the United States government until they had no government. And since 1933, they haven't had a government. They had a bunch of corporations running everything because the people don't have any power. So you can't have a government where the people don't have any power. You have a concentration camp. Okay? Going back to my other point. Let me pull this up. Let me find it first. Okay, here we go, right here. That's not it. What I'm looking for is a design for the human body. And if I can find it, endocrine system, I'll get it. Okay, there we go. Let me make that bigger so you can see it. Take up the whole page. All right. Now this is a course on government. And the brother is showing us the human body. All right. Right in your head, you have this gland called a pineal gland. Okay? This gland is the gland that picks up on all wave formations in the universe. And again, the universal signal is coming from Sirius. And what that universal signal is, or wave formation is what manifests in your body as melanin. So without black, you can't see any colors. So you need that wave transformation, and in this gland is where the beginning stages of melanin takes place. Once that gland is not picking up the signal, you are what we call dead. Okay? Now notice, a few weeks ago, when Bombada did a little experiment with Brother Merkaba, we put our hands over his head, alternating. After we tried to pick him up the first time, we couldn't. But after we did that, we had more power. Which shows that the crown of your head is receiving energy. Okay? All right. This gland picks up the wave formation and transmits it into neurotransmitters. Neurons. Neurotransmitters. Nur. Al-Nur. Al-Nur is the light. Nur-an is the light from heaven. Light is a wave and a particle. Okay? The more neurons you have, the more information you can pick up on cosmically. The more information you can store, the quicker your understanding is. Okay? Hypothalamus connects the endocrine system, which is hormones, and the neurotransmitters. Then you have the pituitary gland, which communicates all hormones to every part of your body. Now, go back to government. Pineal. The pineal gland in the triangle is the place where in Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia, you would have the Congress. What does Congress do? Writes or makes laws. What does the pineal gland do? Makes law. Spatial dimension. Hypothalamus gland connects the nervous system and endocrine system. And when your body is under attack, it is the hypothalamus that acts. It is in the same place or design that, if you were to look at the triangle, that the White House is in. And the executive government does what? Protects the body or the government. All right? Pituitary deals with all commerce or movement of what? Hormones. Hormones are communicated to every cell of your body to give them brain instructions. So if you say, I hate myself, then that instruction is communicated by hormones and neurotransmitters to every cell of your body. Okay? So that's the triangle. And from this three brain triangle is communicated to each part of the body that is a part of the endocrine system. The thyroid, the thymus, the pancreas, the adrenals, and the sexual organs. Okay? All right. We can turn the lights on. Now, again, the people who designed the government, legislative, judicial, and executive branch, got this information from us. And they wanted to make a republic that would last forever. So let's talk about that republic. We don't have to take a break. We're going to jump right into this information. Are you in a republic right now? No, you are not. You are in a democracy. As Malcolm said, democratis, which means the rule of the devil. So what do you need to know? You need to know real jurisprudence. What is real jurisprudence, brother? Let's see. All right. Now, this is after the Dred Scott case. The Dred Scott case is what most people like to quote and say the black man does not have any rights that the white man is bound to respect. But yet, this is a black woman going into the state of Virginia to file her citizenship papers. And what did she do? She went to the county of Petersburg, which is in the state of Virginia, and got the county clerk's seal to authenticate her status. After Dred Scott. She's black. I'm going to go to another one that's okay. And you can read it. All right. Another one. This is from 1854. I believe this is 1854. Okay, this man's name is Samuel Fox. He's a citizen, capital C, of the United States of America. And he is described as sight, African complexion, black woolly hair. He's an American seaman. So why wasn't he a slave? And we're going to bring this up to speed so we get a better understanding of it. All right? I like to go through these all the time. Let's see. And this is one of my favorites. Because when we talk about the authentication process, if I can make this bigger, let's see. I need to make this bigger. If I can't make it bigger here, I'll show it on the slide. The top?
Always click there, right there. And just click and hold it and move it over so you other side going on.
You know what? I have it on the slide. And let me see if I have another copy of this. Hold on. I have another one right here. Okay, it's going to come up. But the reason why I want to show this one is because it shows and talks about the authentication process. To authenticate something means to make a positive statement in law. It is basically an affirmation or affidavit. And you are stating to the jurisdiction who you are. Because if you do not, they will determine by assumption or by false illegal contracts. It's going to come up in a second. So the reason why we are not in a republic now is because the people have lost information. Even if it's by deceit, still lost it. All right, this is kind of light. I don't know if I can make this bigger. Okay, undo that. Let me make this bigger. All right, now I'm going to go down on this. And basically, again, I want to read this. Now, John Jones was an attorney, and he was amongst the so-called Cherokee. Again, we always mention him. And he basically presented and filed in the office of the clerk of the court of the county and state aforesaid a certificate duly authenticated of freedom. So when we talk about jurisprudence and status is, who are you? You cannot be a 14th Amendment citizen. You can turn that, we could turn this back on. I'm going to turn this off. You cannot be a 14th Amendment citizen. Why not? You cannot be a 14th Amendment citizen. To be a 14th Amendment citizen means that you become responsible for the public debt obligation. It means that you are now operating from civil rights. Now, civil rights is what they teach us about all the time. you do not need to be operating in a civil rights zone, because civil rights are privileges and grants from the government from people who do not know the republic. To be a free person is for you to know it and put it on record in the county by affidavit. Now, what will happen when you do that? When you do that, you become responsible for your own rights and responsibilities, which means you don't have to pay into Social Security. You don't have to pay into federal taxes. You won't be responsible like other people to being a bonded or fugitive slave. And if you ever have to go to court, you can go and deal with real law as opposed to codes, regulations, and ordinances. Contract. Okay? But the bigger part of this deals with your political, natural, and personal rights. By political rights, we mean rights by the document of freedom that's supposed to be the document of the country. Okay? Again, the Constitution does not give you rights. The government is only here to guarantee your rights. So you have natural rights. Then you have personal rights that cannot be violated along with those natural rights. But the whole thing that we have been arguing over is the 3/5 clause. And we, with 3/5, they treated us bad because they made us 3/5. Okay? I'm going to close out just a few. But the 3/5 clause was put in for more than just so-called black people. And this is what we want to go over next week, to show you how many white, Irish, and other slaves there were. Because the reason this has been perpetuated over on our heads is because we were, the majority of those people. Because we were under attack. We're always under attack. But we have relegated that to ourselves to that position because we don't understand that the history of this document. And what we want to show is that we can create a quiet revolution. People won't even know what happened. If you get a hold to some of this information, do the changes, before you know it, the thing will be done. You'll be in what you want to be in. Freedom. Financial freedom. Okay? And financial protections. Okay, so I want to close out with a few points. Now, the summary of what we talked about today deals with where the people got their concepts and their government. We're going to cover it a little bit more next week. But what I wanted to show you today was that these people got their information from us. And further on that point, William Penn, when he came here, met a chief of the Nanticoke Moors or Lenape named Tamanend. Now, all over the place, you'll see this handshake taking place in symbols, Fraternal Order of Police. You'll find it on the IDs of the Moorish Science Temple, that handshake. That handshake represents these people who came with William Penn from Europe. But who were they? Quakers, Society of Friends, Rosicrucians. And they were coming from Europe with their teacher, a man named George Fox. George Fox was an initiate in England of these Moors who were attacking Great Britain. And the Islamic influence on George Fox is what gave rise to these Rosicrucians coming over into the United States of America and founding their first place or province, which they were granted, called Philadelphia. And when you read this book, you'll get that information. It's all in this book, okay? It details that information. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is because the people in government already know that. They already know that. And if anybody in America want to change anything, they're going to have to deal with our history. And our leaders are going to have to deal with what effective changes can we bring about civically and economically to change our condition. And the first thing we have to deal with is our status, which should not be documented by birth certificate at all. It should be authenticated like these black people were doing. And forever. We've been dealing with problems so long with no answers. If a simple answer comes, we don't even want to take the step. It seems like it's crazy. You mean that's all you have to do in order to do these other things? Yeah. Stop giving your babies birth certificates. That is what consciously, psychically creates slavery for them. And they begin to be cut off from divine protection. Period. Once you start making deals with the devil, there is no God for your children. I'm going to say that again. Once you start making deals of inferiority with the devil, there is no God for your children. The Quran says that Allah will not help a person until they help themselves. What does that mean? God, not even God is going to help me until I help myself? I mean, it must mean I have God power. So, what we wanted to say today is that our ancestors played a major part in the construction of the concepts. It wasn't Plato's Republic. It was the Abenaki. It was BenjaminBannaker. It was others who we haven't mentioned today, who took part in being here and running and operating their governments and invited white people in. Now, of course, we have learned a great lesson about giving our secret information to white people. We should never make that mistake again. Keep your information amongst yourself and amongst black people that's willing to protect it. Okay? So we're pretty much done. If we have questions, we'll start right there. Any questions? Yes, sir.
The second Adam by Elias Boudinot.
The star, a star in the west. Elias Boudinot. Boudinot. Elias Boudinot. A star in the west. And he also wrote a book called The Second Advent. Right. And he was one of the presidents under the Articles of Confederation. And again, what this information also proves is that we need to be completely re-educated. It's not going to take place in a place like this. This is for you to get some information so you can go home and get the DVDs from Brother Noah and all this stuff and then start learning, you know, at home. But we're going to have to be sat in class to be taught by each other in order to get through. Because the misconceptions in religion, the misconceptions in history, the misconceptions in civics, all need to be dealt with in a dialogue fashion so we can administer self-reparations.
Can you go over the first religion?
The first religion, as far as I understand it, is a study of cosmology or creation, a study of the laws of nature, and the study of the human being, extracting the knowledge from that to learn to govern yourself. And of course, I mentioned the Amarna dynasty, who reinitiated certain ancient scientific concepts, who became known as the founders of monotheism. Monotheism is the highest level of reason and science in acknowledgement to your God or primal power. And they reinitiated that, and that term Amir or Amor or Amran is found in the Quran. And one thing that I didn't mention in the lecture is that the 50,000 year cycle that we were taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which is mentioned in the Quran, is also related to the design of Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia, intricately, and both serve as geographic clocks for that time period. So it shows a transmission of information down to various people all the way up to the Revolutionary era. And, oh yes sir, and that information has been handed down into black secret societies. So we have amongst our people who have protected and preserved information who have handed it down. But as far as I understand, that is the first religion. And it's interesting that you found this information communicated in the Quran like you do, because in my estimation, with a correct translation of the Quran, you have all of the spiritual precepts of the indigenous people preserved in the book. Of course, now, right now, you have the Arab people who have taken over the scripture, so they have done what they have done. But it's our job to translate that material for ourselves. Now, did I answer your